We're talking about Reggie Jackson, who last night was a prominent part of the telecast and was just as authentic as Reggie Jackson gets. We have Rollie Fingers on the phone. He was a teammate of Reggie Jackson's at the time. But Rollie, before I talk to you, I would like our listeners to just take one quick listen, and hopefully along with you, of what Reggie said last night mentioning your name. Take a listen, Rollie.
Had it not been for Rollie Fingers, Johnny McNamara, Dave Duncan, Joe and Sharon Rudy, I slept on their couch 3-4 nights a week for about a month and a half. Finally, they were threatened that they would burn our apartment complex down unless I got out. I wouldn't wish it on anyone.
All right, so right now we're joined by Rollie Fingers, 7-time All-Star, 3 World Series rings, inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1992, one of the greatest relief pitchers of all time. Rollie, I got to tell you, I knew you were a great pitcher, but I learned a lot more about you last night.
Well, well, it was kind of a crazy time in my career because that's the first time I'd ever played baseball in the South. I mean, my first. I was in the Florida State League in 1965, and then in 1966, I played in the California League. That's where Joe Rudy. I met Joe Rudy, and Reggie Jackson was on our team there, so we became real good friends. And then we both went to, all three of us went to Birmingham in 1967, and I had never been around anything racially concerned. I didn't know about that stuff being in California, and it was kind of bad there for Reggie. We first got there, he couldn't find a place to live, and Joe, Rudy, and I we got into an apartment complex about 20 minutes from the ballpark, and Reggie had no place to stay, so he stayed out with Joe, Rudy, and I. We'd kind of switch off. He would stay on our couches, and the people that were in the development, they didn't particularly care about seeing Reggie there, and they were threatening us, and so Reggie, he was there for probably about a month, maybe a month and a half, and then he finally found a place, but yeah, it wasn't good for him traveling around to the teams. The cities that we went to in the South. I mean, we were going into we were in Georgia, Macon, Georgia, Montgomery, Alabama, Evansville, Indiana, Knoxville, Tennessee, and we were on road trips, and some of these road trips were 8-10-hour trips. And if we pulled over to a place to get something to eat, they wouldn't let him come in. And so we'd have to move on, or if we were out in the middle of nowhere, he would stay on the bus, and we would go in and get food and bring it back out to him. So it wasn't a fun time for Reggie playing in the minor league, especially in the Southern League that year.
Yeah, well, Reggie told a couple stories about what he went through. Can you describe what his white teammates were like? Were they all like you and trying to help him along? Were other of his teammates maybe just distancing themselves? What kind of dynamic was that?
No, it wasn't. The guys that we had on the team, we all liked Reggie. I mean, everybody liked Reggie. I think we had one other black ball player on the team. Oh God, I think it was a pitcher, but I can't remember his name. And we had a couple of Puerto Ricans on the team, and I think we had one Dominican Republic ball player on the team. But there was only 2 black players, and Reggie was one of them. But we all got along. I mean, all the ball players loved Reggie. We all got along with Reggie real well. He was fine back then. No problems at all. He was a good guy.
Well, and one of the reasons it feels like a lot of people have spoken so fondly about him is because he wore it on his sleeve. I mean, he let people know exactly how he felt, which was also one of the reasons he described last night why you guys were so important to keeping him from doing something that he might regret. So I'm curious if you ever saw Reggie Jackson let these things affect him. Did he let on what he'd been harboring? And he spoke about it in his documentary as well. At that time, the racism, the vitriol, everything that he had to deal with, how much did he let on to you guys especially when you're in that apartment complex and you're sharing rooms together.
Yeah, well, he wasn't real happy about the situation. He thought that he was imposing on us, but he wasn't imposing on us. And like I say, everybody on the ball club, we got along fine. But it was something that he wasn't used to. I mean, he was a big football star at ASU, and there was really any problems there when he was going to college at ASU. Then he signed, and that year in 1965, he came up to Modesto and joined the Modesto A's. And we heard that we're getting this running back. I said, what the hell are we going to do with a running? But then when he got there, at about 5 or 6 o'clock every day, he would put on a hitting display that you wouldn't believe. He would hit balls so far. There isn't any ballpark that they couldn't hold a ball on him. He's a strong arm. He could throw strikes from the outfield to home plate, and you could just tell he was going to be a great ball player. And he joined us about mid-season, and we ended up winning the league that year. We went to Birmingham in '67. We won the league that year. He had a great year, and then he went on to the big leagues. But '67 was a tough year for him. But he didn't really come out and say a whole lot about it when he was talking with Joe and I or any of the guys on the team.
We're joined by Rollie Fingers, 7-time All-Star, won 3 World Series, including the MVP in '74. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1992. Teammate of Reggie Jackson. I'm kind of interested, Rollie, in knowing, you played with him in Birmingham, you played with him in Kansas City, then you came to Oakland. And, I'm just wondering, did the issues follow him to Oakland? What was the difference between Birmingham, Kansas City, and Oakland, if there was any? Was he more comfortable out here?
He was a lot more comfortable. I think once you get to the big leagues, that stuff went out the window. We were going to big cities, Kansas City, Anaheim, Milwaukee. I mean, we never had any problems. New York, playing the Yankees or Boston or going to Cleveland. We never really had any problems racially in the big leagues. It was just that one year in 1967, there was a lot of problems in the South. And after that, once you got to the big leagues, really, there was no problem at all. As far as staying in hotels, we all stayed in pretty nice hotels, and we could go into all the restaurants usually, no problems. So it wasn't that bad.
Well, I was going to ask Rollie, it's obviously incomparable to what Reggie had to go through as a black man, but when he says thanks to yourself, to Joe, Rudy, to Dave Duncan, I mean, did you guys ever feel it, or were you ever approached by anyone as those that stood up for Reggie Jackson just because everyone looked down on him, that you had to be the teammates both on and off the field? But did you ever feel pressure to not necessarily not be, but did you feel that kind of the residual effects of what Reggie was dealing with?
When Reggie, we lived out. He was staying with us out at a complex, and no one really ever approached us. But word was getting around that they didn't like Reggie being there, and but no one really ever approached us, me or Joe, Rudy, or because we were hanging out together. When we went to the ballpark, we would all drive in the same car, go to the ballpark. And when we would come home, we never really had any problems. But it was hard for Reggie to find a place to live. He wanted to stay in a nice area, and most of the nice areas didn't welcome us. So it was a little tough for him there. But he got through the season. I know it was kind of rough for him, but he never really spoke that much about it.
Rollie Fingers joining us on 95.7 The Game, teammate of Reggie Jackson, 3-time World Series winner. The one thing that I'm interested in is when Reggie mentioned you specifically last night with Johnny McNamara, Joe Rudy, and a couple others. And what I'm curious about is, he used the phrase that if it wasn't for white guys like you, that he may have ended up hanging from an oak tree. And what I'm wondering is, at that time, did you realize you might be doing something special or extraordinary? And then when you heard what he said last night, what kind of impact does that have on you?
Oh, I think both Joe and I were very appreciative of what he said. We were just, we were just being friends. I mean, we were friends for almost 2 years already, and Reggie was a great guy, and it was just the South. That was the problem, and we appreciate everything that he said last night. I heard the tape, and at the time you don't really think about that. I wasn't thinking about that. All I was doing was being a friend, same as Joe, Rudy, and John McNamara. Our manager was a great guy, and he wasn't going to put up with that stuff either. And so, even all the other guys on the team felt the same way.
Well, Rollie, what we have you here, obviously a big part of last night's event at Rickwood Field was the honoring of Willie Mays, one of the greatest to ever lace him up. And you had the opportunity to pitch against him throughout your career, but also in the World Series. He got his last hit of his Major League Baseball career off you in Game 2 of the 73 World Series. That was also the first year you guys shared the field in an all-star game. Could you just tell us kind of what your lasting memory of Willie Mays is, and if there's any times you guys interacted, if there's a story you could share with us?
Well, when I grew up as a kid, I moved from Ohio to L.A., and there was no baseball in 1955. And then Brooklyn came in 58, and the Giants came in 58. So we got the first time I was ever even able to watch a big league ball game was when the Dodgers and the Giants played one another, and I became a big Willie Mays fan. I loved Willie Mays. I mean, he was it. I wanted to see the Dodgers win, but I wanted to see Willie Mays do good. And so my dad came home from work one day and said, "Hey, let's go to a Dodger game." We hardly never went. And I said, "Well, who's playing?" He said, "The Giants are playing." I said, "Oh, cool." So we go to the ballpark, and my dad said, "Where do you want to sit?" I said, "I want to sit in the center field bleachers. I mean, Willie's going to be 50 feet from me. I'm going to watch, I'll see Willie Mays." So I started talking to a kid next to me, and he said, "Hey, you want to go try and get some autographs after the game?" And I said, "Do you know where the players come out?" He pointed up to a parking lot. I said, I asked my dad, and he said, "Okay." That was like I was about 11, 12 years old, something like that. And so we go up there, and I couldn't get close to anybody. I mean, I saw Koufax and Drysdale and Duke Snyder and Maury Wills and Orlando Cepeda and McCovey, all the golf players coming out, but I couldn't get close to anybody. And a door opened off to my left, and it caught my eye, and it's Willie. And Willie's sneaking down through the parking lot at Dodger Stadium. So I'm chasing Willie now in the parking lot at Dodger Stadium. And I get to the car where he's at, and I said, "Mr. Mays, would you, sign my autograph?" Signed the autograph, Willie Mays, and that was it. And 13 years later, I'm on the mound in the 73 World Series, and I hear the announcer say, "Now batting, Willie Mays." Now, all of a sudden, it's kind of surreal. You're facing a guy that, you idolized as a kid. So on that particular at-bat, I struck him out on 3 pitches. And then the next game, I think it was Game 2, he had a high hopper over my head that was his last major league hit. And there was a guy on third, so it was his last major league RBI.
Wow.
So I was the last guy to strike him out. He got his last hit off me, and he got his last RBI off me. So I told Willie when I got into the Hall of Fame in 1992, I went over to his table. We were having our dinner, and I told Willie this story. And I said, "Willie, it's a good thing you signed that autograph, or I'd have drilled your hind end."
Hey, Rollie, I actually got a... Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Did I interrupt you?
Well, there was no way I was going to hit Willie Mays.
Rollie, I actually got a story about you that I remember fondly, and you'll probably never remember, but you used to play in the celebrity golf tournament up in Tahoe, right?
Oh, yeah. All the time.
Yeah, so I went up there to cover it. I was working for a newspaper, and they used to have a program of all the celebrities and former athletes who were participating, and it was a big, kids could get autographs whenever they wanted. The access was incredible, and there was a young kid, must have been 10 years old, and I don't know, you were maybe in your 50s or something, I don't know, and the kid knows you're somebody, and he says, "Sir, can I have your autograph?" And you said, "Sure." and he starts fumbling through the book, the program of all the celebrities, of the ex-players. And the kid clearly doesn't know who you are. And the kid's getting nervous, and I'm looking at you thinking, I wonder if Rollie's going to get annoyed. And you could see the kid was fumbling, and you just said, here, young man, let me have the program. He handed you the program, you pulled it open to your page, and you signed the autograph, and you ended up thanking him. And I just thought that was really gracious at the time. I remember it to this day.
Yeah, if he was a young kid, he probably didn't know who I was.
Well,
older.
Well, the world knows who you are now if they didn't before, Rollie. You were spoken very highly of, and just appreciate you coming on so much. It's been a kind of a special week in one way or the other for baseball, and thank you so much for capping it off with us.
All right, my pleasure. Had a great time.
All right. Rollie Fingers.